Great. Well, we will let all of our attendees continue to file in, but thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Melissa Reeves, your CEO at the One West Tourism Alliance. We're so happy to have you here today. Our guests today really need no introduction. I know you know these faces all too well, but we are thrilled to have Chuck Davison, Zeek Coleman, and Laura, I'm sorry, your last name?
Spiker.
Spiker. Thank you, Laura. Sorry about that. We're so thrilled to have all of you joining us today for this call. Again, thank you so much for doing this, and I will turn it over to you.
Right. Well, thank you, Melissa. Such a joy to continue our partnership with One West Tourism Alliance, and just want to commend you for the great work that you're doing and the continued growth that we're seeing in the association. So important to the tourism space. We are honored as a team at Tourism Economics to be with you here today. So, kind of a two-part presentation. Zeke's going to lead us off with a kind of macro view of what's happening in the tourism economy today and kind of the state of tourism here in the United States and some of the things that we're seeing as a global economics company. And then we're going to dovetail that into the continued need to be able to prove the value of the destination marketing work that all of you are doing in your amazing destinations. But before we jump in there, take a quick moment to do intros for those of you that might not know us. I'm Chuck Davison. I'm the Vice President of Attribution Solutions here at Tourism Economics. I've been on the team almost a year. Spent the last 10 years as CEO of a destination in California where I had the opportunity to work with so many of you in developing the long-time relationships that we have. So it's a pleasure to be back on this side, being able to partner with you and service you to help, again, bring a spotlight to the amazing things you're doing in your destination. Laura, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I'm Laura Spiker, Senior Solutions Engineer for Attribution. I work directly with clients, helping them understand actionable insights from their website and media efforts. I spent 13 years at Azira, so I'm very familiar with mobile location data and how it can be used for marketing solutions. I led the advertising operations team. So yeah, a lot of experience with media execution as well. Zeke?
Thanks, Laura. And I'm Zeek Coleman, VP Americas for Tourism Economics. I head up a lot of the sales and marketing and do a lot of travel and speaking. So pleasure to be with you all.
All right, Zeke,
Chuck,
you want
should
to
I?
kick it off?
Yep,
Yeah, great.
here we go. All right, so what we thought we'd do is give you guys a little bit of an update. And it's funny, like every time I do this, I have to update my deck uh, minutes before we join. So if you see any bloopers or anything, blame it on the economy and whoever's shifting it. A little bit about us. You guys know us, but you may not know me as I just gave the introduction. So you may be asking, why should I listen to this dude? And
Zeke, the slide that's showing is the presenter view.
oh, that's embarrassing. There we
No,
go.
it's not.
That's a
There you go.
blooper. How about now? We good?
Perfect. You're great.
Okay. Okay. We're an Oxford company. Oxford has won a ton of awards. You guys have heard all this before, probably, but just helpful context for why you should listen to this data. We have regularly out forecasted those in the financial news every day. Citigroup, JP Morgan, Moody's, you name it. Oxford is noted as better. And one of the noteworthy names that I want to call out is Live Nation, and mostly so I could just show you this screenshot of Beyonce and this fella who's quite interested in taking a picture with her. This is a fun photo. But as Chuck likes to say, if Live Nation and Beyonce are trusting our analysis, then you can trust the 6'6" dude that's talking to you right now. So what we're going to do real quick is answer some quick questions. How did we get here? What happened last year, and where are we today? So we'll take a trip down memory lane data wise, and you'll see that not last year, but 2023, people felt bad, about as bad as they did in the 2008, 2009 financial crisis. And the reason was inflation. Now, I can't actually see audience participation, but I typically like to ask what preceded this mountain of inflation here. And the answer is government funding, stimmies. We all got the money, and it felt good when it first hit your bank account or you got that check, but that that caused problems. After you got your tigers at PetSmart and you got your home gym and your Home Depot gardening set, reality set in. And what that looks like is if you were making $100,000 pre stimulus check and you got a raise to 111, you still could only buy $100,000 worth of pre-inflation goods. So again, in Alabama, that may feel great. Miami, LA, New York, not so much. People were also holding on to their jobs. So the red line, that's the quit rate. Um, uh, and you can see they were quitting actually coming out of the pandemic. And the blue line, that's wages. So they were quitting to get a raise. And then eventually they said, I'm staying put because, inflation was rising. People weren't feeling as confident. They're not going to job hop because they don't have any promise of any wage growth through doing that. What happened in 24? Among other things, there was a rap beef. We discovered women's basketball. There was this and that. I like this to use this slide to say that our analysis is apolitical, meaning we let the data speak for itself. So we try not to let our own, political leanings influence the analysis. So when you see what I'm about to show next, you can trust it. Here's a look at travel growth in 2024. So it flatlines. So you can see the numbers from left to right are getting smaller. That's year over year growth for each of those months for travel spending and then air passenger count and also hotel demand. Now, this is another look at hotel demand, and you can see where that contraction happened. It's at the economy and mid-scale class. This is a signal of bifurcation that's happening in the visitor economy. So basically, the rich got richer, the poor got poorer, and you can see that evident in the travel data. Here's another look at lodging. So I said it was flat to down. It's really propped up by short-term rental and cruise nights. Cruise is actually exploding and having some of their best years ever, but hotel room nights, not so much. So any hoteliers in the room or the hoteliers in your community are definitely feeling like Will Smith in this moment. Again, I can't see faces, so I don't know who all's in tune to what happened on this pop culture moment, but this was a sad day for husbands everywhere. And so sad news for hoteliers, especially if you're in the mid-scale or economy. Inflation fell to 2.4% in March, however, and it was falling in 2024. However, by the way, that yellow line was the Fed's target. If it hit that, then we'd feel pretty good about the cuts that were coming. But tariffs kind of rocked the boat. And currently, we're sitting at 15%. Last week, when I had this slide, it was 21%. So it is trending in the right direction, but 35% if the pause tariffs return, which, to remind you, that's Great Depression era level of tariffing. So pretty significant. The risk skew to the downside. These are some key mile markers. So just to show or highlight the volatility, this is where we were pre-election, and we've been as high as here. This is our best and worst case scenario. So just kind of give you a picture of the range that we're dealing with. This is no surprise. People expect inflation to skyrocket. So egg prices aren't feeling so good about that. Core inflation will rise to 3.4% this year. That's the blue line. Again, the yellow line was our first forecast for May. It's gotten a little better, but still elevated. And then there's a range of possibilities. So the best case scenario is the yellow line again, trending in a positive direction, but balls in your court, Mr. President. Work your magic, drop your salt. Let's see what happens with that. Unemployment remains low at 4.2% in April, and it is, evident in the forecast again, a little bit of a drop from what we were expecting, and consumer sentiment is near its historic low. However, that did rebound in May, so a little bit of an uptick you can see there at the very end of that line, and then the Fed, they are likely to hold rates for longer. That could change, but again, if you're hoping to buy a house or sell your house or do anything that requires you to get a loan, you know, proceed with caution. All that to say, economic growth will slow markedly in 2025. This chart has changed, like, I'll use a bit of hyperbole, but maybe 50 times since we've been given this presentation. It's 1.5% today. Again, 2 weeks ago, 1.2. It all depends on Salt Bay Trump. Okay, let's look at leisure. So air travel's holding up. People are traveling more than ever. I want to say we had nearly 1 billion passengers go through TSA last year. Credit delinquencies they were an issue. They're not flashing red, so that's positive news. That's the dark blue line there. Americans are starting to show concern. So when you ask them, do you feel now is a good or bad time to spend money on travel? This is the percent that say good or very good time to spend on travel. It's declining just a bit. That's April. Similar question, thinking carefully about how you expect to spend your income, describe your priorities, and this is somewhat high or extremely high priority leisure travel for them. And then intended leisure travel trips have dipped. This is again from our friends at Future Partners, 3.7%, 3.7 trips over the next 12 months, and 91% will do one or more. And the budget has dropped a little as well. So perhaps they're pulling back on some of the niceties of the trip, but they do still plan to travel, and that is still a relatively high travel budget. It's just maybe people tighten up a bit. This is a look just after the Liberation Day announcement, fielded April 3rd through 5th. 4% drop in travel intentions over the next 12 months. 80% of consumers say their behavior will change as a result of the financial news. 33% will travel closer to home. So you could expect maybe some of what we saw during the pandemic where people weren't going as far. So maybe a little bit of a boom domestically. 29% even say they will change from international to domestic, and over half believe Americans will be less welcome in other countries, at least at that time. This is a little bit of a picture of the bifurcation I mentioned. So the rich got richer, but even those in the lower income quartiles also got wealthier. The middle group notwithstanding. So this is good news. Higher income households actually account for a majority of hotel spending and lodging spend. So despite all of what I've shown in terms of sentiment and people pulling back and a little bit less budget, the people that are going to lead the charge and kind of help you survive are those that can afford to. And so that's something you want to keep in mind as you're developing your communication plans and marketing plans. Those people are going to prioritize experiences. And when you talk to the airlines, American and Delta both think that the largest weakness is kind of in that domestic main cabin, but Delta says that the desire to experience rather than acquire is what's going to continue to stay strong. So people are going to take trips. They're not going to maybe do as much as they would have done. With international, I'm going fast to make sure we have some time for Chuck and Laura, but just want to hit that real quick. I want to look at the past. So this is what happened last time around. So China, there was a trade war between us and China. And during the last administration, China's long haul outbound actually grew. So that's the yellow line. But China to the US actually contracted. So they traveled more than they ever have, but less to the US. Here's another look at that. So China fell 7% over that time. Compared to the 63% growth in the prior year. So again, we were on a rocket ship and of growth with China. It went down. Effectively, trade wars are intrinsically combative. So that didn't help us. And that's instructive when you think about what's likely to happen internationally this time around. 51st state language doesn't help. Denmark, Greenland tensions don't help. Reduce global partnerships, deplete soft power. Deportations and the stories around that they don't signal that we're welcoming, and there are potential travel bans in the wings. So Here's some of the data that we see now. The effects are already evident. There is a bit of an Easter shift, so take April with a grain of salt. Easter was in March last year, so that's a bit of the impact. But when you average that out, we're down 2% year over year. France, Korea, and Germany are already showing a pretty dramatic turn. You can see them at the very top. And then Canada land travel is down by nearly a third. Again, January, February, March, right there. And that didn't help either. Um, May Border Patrol data is showing international declines post Easter. So again, that Easter bump was going to happen, but those declines after Easter kind of show you that the declines internationally are going to be sustained. And then this is a look at the forward bookings from OAG, and it points to steeper declines. You can see for Canada in the red, Mexico in green, and the rest of the world in blue. That's something to keep your eye on. All that to say, our forecast has now shifted. We actually anticipated a recovery this year. That was the dark blue line. That's now shifted to 2029. So kind of pushed it out about 4 years. We'll see if that changes, but we feel pretty confident that this is what's going to happen internationally. I'm going to skip that thumbnail because it's funny, but this is recorded. Business uncertainty poses a major risk. This is a little bit of a noisy chart, but a look at the uncertainty and how it could impact business travel. Capital spending by firms is held back by trade policy uncertainty, higher interest rates, and higher prices. And this is a note from Hilton. They actually think group will continue to lead, business transient will be next, and then they expect leisure conditions in the near term, given the uncertainty, to remain softer. This is a bit of a survey. So 29% of global travel buyers expect a decline in business travel volume at their companies this year, averaging a 21% decrease, and then 20% are considering canceling, moving, or pulling attendance from meetings and events located in the US. Final thoughts, in a nutshell, the positives for domestic leisure are income growth have outpaced inflation still. We do still have solid balance sheets. The tax cuts help, but tariff effects on prices and sentiment are not good. Those are headwinds, as well as a softening labor market. And then domestic business, the tax cuts again are positive, but issues with supply chain, increased prices, uncertainty do not necessarily help business travel. And there's the obvious with international, but happy to field any questions if you guys have any. Otherwise, I will kick it back to you, Chuck. Feel free to sort of chime in on any of that data I presented.
All right. Thanks, Zeek. Already getting good props for your humor and your personalities, making all the data they love better. So I'm going to let you monitor the Q&A while we shift gears. If you do have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, whether they're on Zeek's presentation or the conversation we're about to enter with Laura and I. We will save some time at the end to be able to answer any questions and talk any of that through, and would love to have some interaction with all of you. So feel free to submit that information there. I'm gonna pop up the screen, and we'll jump into kind of this ROI conversation. As Zeke was talking about, we're seeing obviously a lot of pressure. Is that showing up okay? Good. Yeah. So we're seeing a lot of pressure across the economy, and that pressure is obviously filtering down to all of you in the DMO space. And one of the things that we're hearing from, the over 200 customers now on the Symphony product, but also over 100 customers on this attribution product that we're talking to you about today, is the need to be able to defend and prove the value of their organization in the work that they're doing. We're all very familiar with the economic impact reports that get produced in our communities based on the value of tourism. And that's great, but that is not specific or directly related to the work that the DMOs are doing in each community. And so these products were really born to help define the specific value that you are bringing to your community in the work that you're doing through your website and the work that you're doing through your media. And they were born out of identifying some of the challenges that DMOs are facing globally. This product that we're talking to you about today, just like the rest of the work that tourism economics in Oxford does, is on the global spectrum. And so we're working with partners inside the US, but also outside the US on these same concerns. And in the DMO space, it's often based on this funding challenge, whether you are an organization that has been able to grow your funding over these last couple of years and are forced to maintain it, improve the value, or you're a DMO that's trying to find different funding avenues. This funding conversation is one that continues to drive and shape the space of the DMO community. And it's often based on this belief that destination marketing isn't necessary. You've got an amazing destination, people have heard of it, and your elected officials feel, why do we need to tell anybody about this? You know, they're going to come anyway. But we know from research that you're competing for share of wallet and share of trip on the global scale every single day with thousands of destinations. And so the need for that destination marketing is there. There's also a growing belief over the last 5 or so years that the dollars that DMOs get, whether public or private, can be better utilized for other things. Things like workforce housing or homelessness, or in the great state of California where I used to live, those conversations are now around fire mitigation based on the crisis in Los Angeles. And all of that often spins out of the fact that, you know, we're constantly trying to educate elected officials. Just when we get an elected official to understand what a DMO is and what a DMO does, and hopefully we've converted them into a champion for our business, they change and we get to start the process all over again. And then you add in more recently this issue of government intervention and vulnerability of policy change through things like Doge, although I did see the announcement yesterday that Elon Musk's term in the presidency or serving at the pleasure of the president is coming to an end. And so we'll see how that changes Doge going forward. But all of those segments are ultimately driving this concern. This is an article just from last week in the Orange County Register on the oversight that's in place now for Visit Anaheim simply isn't enough, and there needs to be more. And this is just one spotlight, you know, on one community that we're all very, very familiar with. This is happening on a state, on a U.S. and on a global scale across the world, and that's often driven by the fact that because DMOs are not brick and mortar, because there is no SKU code, it's very, very hard to define the specific value that a DMO is driving for the community, at least in the eyes of elected officials, community representatives, and residents. And I would say that we haven't done ourselves any favors in the DMO space when, over the last 10 years, 2 of the major KPIs that we're reporting out on are clicks and impressions, things that boards and elected officials don't care about and, quite frankly, don't understand. And they're things that it's hard to tie visitation or ROI to. But, you know, to be honest, that was the best that we had at the time. And so that's why we used it. Well, this product is really focused on trying to get to the next evolution of that, of how we're talking about campaign performance specific to the work that we're doing in a quantitative and qualitative fashion. So that really brings us to this solution. And simply put, at the highest level, we're linking geolocation data to media and website exposures from the campaigns that you're running in and on behalf of your destination. And we're using that information to ultimately analyze the impact, both the impact on influenced visitation, and we'll come back to that influence piece in just a minute, because that's a major differentiator for us in this product offering, but also the subsequent impact on the economy through visitor spending, taxes, and jobs inside of your destination. So you're serving up this number of impressions in the digital space, or you've got this visitation to your website in the website work that you're doing. We are then modeling out a control group of individuals who would have come to the destination irrespective of the advertising that you are placing, and really getting you down to the rate at which you are influencing visitation to the destination. So that influence rate is getting us to the visitors and ultimately the economic impact and the state and local taxes. But how do we get there? Well, it starts by us looking at the visitation rate of those who saw your advertising or visited your website. But equally, and in some cases more important, is the visitation rate of those who did not see your advertising or visit your website. Because it's that group that wasn't exposed to your advertising that allows us to create that control group modeling and really get down to the rate at which you're influencing visitation to the destination. So you've got 10 individuals that have shown up in your destination. Of that, 6 of them saw your advertising and arrived in your community. But more important than that, only 3 saw your advertising, arrived in your destination, and would not have come had it not been for the influence that your advertising had on their trip decision-making process. I'm going to hand it over to Laura, and she's going to walk us through some geolocation methodology.
Yeah, thanks. So it starts with location data, which many of you I'm sure are familiar with. But what we are collecting is the latitude and longitude from the GPS of the device. So same GPS we all use to get directions. That's the level of granularity and precision that we are collecting. Because of the robustness of that data, that's what allows us to see how a phone moves throughout the world. So what restaurants they might go to, what their origin market is, what activities they participate in, and all of that data can be used for research. Now, when it comes to tying it back to your media or to your website, that's done via a pixel. So in the case of ads, the pixel is placed alongside the ad, and what it's capturing is the IP address. And when that IP address is a household IP, then we're able to bridge it or link it to the mobile phones that are also associated with that same household IP address. So it does become important to filter out public IP. So let's take, for example, I'm at the airport, I see one of your ads. In this case, we're going to filter that out because we don't want to match to every single person that was at the airport when it was only me who actually saw your ad. So that means that this does work cross-device, meaning I could see your ads or visit your website on my phone or on a tablet or on my laptop. In the case of ads, I could hear an audio ad via Spotify or Pandora, could be a CTV ad. In all cases, the pixel is firing. We are capturing that IP address, then bridging it to the phone that's associated with that same IP address and saying, great. Okay, does that phone now ultimately show up in your destination? Yes or no?
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen there, and we're going to jump over to a live demo so you can get a better feel for what the product actually looks like and how you might use it inside your local community. So this is the media attribution summary. We're going to take a look at the website summary here in just a second, and we'll also jump over and take a look at the economic impact reporting pages so that you can understand what the end result of this work is that we're talking about today. So here at the top, we've got the filterable data, and this allows us to run by campaign, or we can look at this by fiscal year or annual year for reporting. This is a global platform, so we do have access to international data as well. So if you're looking, if you're advertising into international destinations, then we can source that for you here too. We've got a breakdown here of all the DMAs. So if you want to segment DMAs in or out based on what kind of look you want to have, you have the ability to do that. And we can do the same thing at the campaign level, where you can drill down or segment certain campaigns out. This is exposure to visit. And so here we're looking at the first time they were exposed to your media or on the website attribution page, the first time they were exposed to your website, and how long it took them to show up in the destination. So because this is dynamic, right now we're looking at all of the campaigns and all the DMAs rolled together, but you do have the ability to scroll down to the DMA section and pick specific DMAs and click on those. And all the metrics on the screen are going going to change again. So if you want to understand, what is the exposure to visit for Los Angeles versus Denver versus Chicago, you have the ability to drill down in those sequences and really get smarter and more tactical at the timing, the lead time you need in those markets of origin in order to drive visitation to your community. I'm going to try to keep us focused and not go down too many rabbit holes, but I do want to take you down a couple because I want you to understand the dynamics of the platform. These are the points of interest in the destination. And so when you subscribe to this product, you're selecting 50 points of interest inside your destination, and we're drawing the geofence on those so that you can understand when somebody's exposed to your campaign and they do in fact show up in your destination, where do they visit and what does that look like? So that's what we're showing here. Here's where we start to get a lot more nuance. So this is performance by campaign. We're looking at all the campaigns the destination is running. Here, we can see the number of impressions that are placed across all of those campaigns. And we can also see the observed visits. So this is different than what we talked about a minute ago in the PowerPoint deck. That's influence visits. We'll get to that when we get to economic impact. But this is the observed visits. Anybody who saw your campaign and ultimately showed up in the destination, that's what we're visualizing here. So you can sort this and understand what campaigns are driving the highest rate of visitation. But more important than that, we believe, is this efficiency metric that we've created. This visitors per thousand impressions allows us to normalize the observed visits into the destination against the number of impressions placed. Obviously, we would think the more impressions we run, the higher the visitation that we would create. And that can, in fact, be true, but that does not necessarily mean it's the most efficient use of your campaign dollars. So when we sort this, we can understand what campaigns are operating at the highest rate of efficiency. We see this digital national campaign with our largest number of impressions driving strong visitation, but not as efficient as, say, this auto drive campaign with a lot less impressions, still driving a high rate of visitation and a higher rate of efficiency. And we can look at that from the top of what's doing the best. We can also look at it from the bottom. We really thought maybe this National Weekenders campaign was going to perform really strong for us, and it didn't. How do we go back and rethink that creative, rethink the placement of the markets in which we put it into, maybe rethink the call to action or the media partner that we placed it with? This is performance by vendor. I think for me, in my past role, this was the piece that we were definitely missing, is insight into how our vendors were performing for us at a local level. A lot of times we'll get visibility into how vendors are reporting, but that is self-reported by the vendor. We really encourage destinations to think about not having people grade their own homework. So we are agnostic to where you place media, who you place it with, what the creative looks like. We're simply reporting out third party on the results for you so you can get a true understanding of what those results are producing. So we're seeing those media vendors here. And again, we can see the impressions placed across each of those partners. We can see the observed visits into the destination. So again, understanding from these partners who's driving the highest rate of observed visitation. But again, we can understand the efficiency. And so which partners that we're placing media with are operating at the most efficient rate for us. We'll come back to media in just a second. This is performance by DMA. So we're currently looking at the top 15. We can change this to the top 50 or the top 100. And we can see the DMAs in which we're placing media in and the impressions across those DMAs. So we see our largest set of impressions currently is in Los Angeles and then Philadelphia and then Boston. We can see the observed visits into the destination. And so when we sort this by observed visits, we see that in this case, Philadelphia, where we're placing the second largest number of impressions, is bubbling up to the top. And if we scroll down, we can see what that looks like as well. But again, more important, our belief is this efficiency metric. And so understanding which DMAs are operating at the highest rate of efficiency. We see, Philadelphia is still ranking up here, but we have several sub-markets that are operating more efficiently than Philadelphia. These are also markets, take note, that are much cheaper to buy advertising in than the Philadelphia metro. And so could we consider investing maybe some additional dollars in these communities to drive some additional visitation and a higher rate of performance into the market? We can also, as I mentioned, flip this upside down. And we see down here at the bottom, Los Angeles, where we're placing the largest number of impressions. The efficiency here is pretty low. We'll come back to that in a second. When we come back to media performance, we can actually look at this by media type as well. So instead of just looking at the media partner, we can look at the media partner across the different verticals that we're buying. So we see video, CTV, display. Again, we can see the impressions across those three. We can see the observed visitation across those three. And again, more important, we can see the efficiency across those three. So it allows us to deep dive and understand, if we're buying specific sources of media, where's the best place to place that in order to get a better return on our investment. We come back out again, because the platform is dynamic, we can click into any of these media partners and see specific results for them. So instead of looking at this across all campaigns, now we're looking at this just for Sojourn. We're seeing the campaigns that we're running through Sojourn, and again, what those efficiency of those individual campaigns are. We can also see here down at the bottom the DMAs in which we are running campaign through Sojourn, and we can see what that performance looks like again. So we see we've got a large number of impressions running with Philadelphia, and we see the efficiency, and we see the markets that are outperforming Philadelphia from an efficiency standpoint. We can come down to the bottom again. We see in this case about half of our total impressions in Los Angeles being placed through Sojourn, and we see the efficiency of 0.8 that's performing at. If we come back up here and we click out of Sojourn and we just pick another partner, like say Pandora, again, the metrics on the screen are going to change again. And in this example, we see Los Angeles, Pandora is performing at an efficiency of 2.3. So we're able to drill down by market, by media partner, by campaign to really understand what partners are working well in which markets, and how do we begin to leverage them to create a higher rate of efficiency and a higher rate of return for the organization and the community. We jump over to the website attribution tab. The information at the top is going to look very similar. This is now directly associated with the website and visitation to the website. But if we look here, we're going to see performance by source. And so here we can see in this case, organic traffic. We're tracking here paid search through Google and Bing. And if this destination was running a paid social campaign, that could show up here as well. We're able to see the impressions placed across those campaigns. Again, the observed visitation. And again, we can understand efficiency on what's performing at a higher rate. So we see the success of this Bing paid search campaign. What would it look like if we can invest some additional dollars behind that? Could we drive some additional visitation and ultimately continue this high rate of efficiency that we've brokered here? We're also able to see the nuance of performance by page. So all of these campaigns are being landed on one of the pages on our website. And we can see by looking at this, the pages that have the highest rate of visitation, where are we landing the most people? Again, we can see the observed visits and which pages are leading to the highest rate of observed visibility in the market. And again, we can understand the efficiency. And so no surprise here at the top on efficiency, things to do this weekend. But I want to call your attention to this third one, which is top spots for photography. This is a page that only the DMO is creating. Nobody else in the community is creating this. You're sourcing this information, and it's seen a tremendous amount of success. So what would it look like to maybe put some paid search or paid social around this content space that you own at the DMO and try to continue to duplicate and triplicate the results that you're seeing here from an efficiency standpoint? We can also flip that upside down. and we can understand what pages that we're driving people to are leading to the lower rates of visitation. So in this example, we've got a number of people that we're driving to this best city visit page, but it's not leading to a high rate of visitation. And we see this often when we drive people to, say, a generic page and they get lost in the customer journey process. So by way of example, you're running a mountain biking campaign, you drive somebody to a generic outdoor web page, they can't find the mountain biking information, and they abandon the customer journey process. Or you're sending somebody to a page where there's no call to action and no specifics. So because this is not a SaaS product, because this is a product that we're working with you and your destination on a monthly or quarterly basis, we're able to identify some of these areas of concern and call them to your attention so you can make pivots on a monthly basis along the way, leading to stronger performance by the time that you get to the end of the year. And again, we can see the same information by DMA, so we can begin to understand what markets are delivering at the highest rate of efficiency and performance. And again, what would it look like to maybe put some paid search or paid social in some of these markets to see if we can't increase the traffic to the website and ultimately play off of these high levels of efficiency we've created. I want to go back up here for just a second to the media portion. So we're looking here at performance by source. I just want to call your attention to, you can also look at performance by campaign. And you can also look at performance by medium. So all of those, all three of these are available here for you to search and dive deeper and understand at your will. All of this is ultimately rolling up to economic impact. And this is what we believe is becoming the gold standard for DMOs when they're talking about the value that they're doing in their marketing work. So here we're seeing the media economic impact. There is a website economic impact as well, depending on what platform that you're looking at. But when we look at this dashboard, we're able to see again the exposure date, so we can understand the time period in which our campaign ran, or again run this by fiscal or annual year. But now we're adding in visitation date. Our board and our elected officials don't care about when a campaign ran. They simply care about when somebody showed up in the destination. So you're able to look at this by visitation date. Here we're seeing the total number of impressions run for the campaigns for the destination. We've now modeled out that control group we talked about earlier to get down to this influence visit rate. You remember over here that we're looking at observed visits, those who saw the campaign and showed up subsequently in the destination. We're now moving away from observed visits and economic impact, and we're talking about just the rate of visitation that you have influenced via the work that you're doing specifically for your destination. And that influence visit rate is really what's driving the economic impact. So this is getting us to direct visitor spending. We also have direct, indirect, and induced visitor spending so that you can understand the full roll-up of that economic impact. And then everything here in this left-hand vertical is all the stuff we've become accustomed to in economic impact reporting for DMOs. But again, as I mentioned earlier, that's typically tied to the value of tourism. This is not that. This is the value of the campaigns that you ran on behalf of your destination with the dollars that your destination entrusted you with to do the marketing that you do for them. So we're looking at influence visits. We see the visitor spending. We see the job supported through that visitor spending, and the wages and salaries that are being paid for those jobs that our spending is supporting. And we're also seeing the local and state taxes. We're then breaking out that visitor spending by lodging, food and beverage, retail, recreation, and transportation. Down here, we're rolling up direct, indirect, and induced spending. So that's this number up here. We're rolling that all up, and we're looking at the jobs that are being supported through all of that work and the wages and salaries being paid for those jobs. And then down here at the bottom, last but not least, we're breaking out the local and state bed tax. So everything that you need from an advocacy message, everything that you need to communicate with your board, your elected officials, your residents in your community on the value that the DMO is driving is now all right here in this monthly report directly related to your work. If you don't run this campaign, you don't influence this visitation, and the spending in your destination never occurs. That is the brass tacks that you can take credit for in the amazing work that you've been doing on behalf of your community, but haven't had this level of insight to report out on before. Last but not least, and then would love to dive into any questions you might have. This is our opportunity graph. So we're looking at total impressions placed across the bottom, observed visits into the destination across the left-hand vertical. And the larger the circle, the larger the gross impact. So we see in this case, we're running about 20 million impressions in New York City. We've got about 32,000 visitors who have come for a gross impact of 9 versus, say, Washington, D.C., where we've got 1/9 the number of impressions, almost the exact same rate of visitation for a gross impact of 100. So we can start to drill down and unpack some of these markets where it looks like we've got strong performance, but we just want to further that visitation into the destination, try to get more of it so that we can ultimately create a higher rate of efficiency and ultimately create more economic impact for the community. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing the screen and stop talking, and we're happy to take any questions that you might have.
You did get a question, Chuck, while you were going. Early on, it said, and I think referring to MIC, how does this platform work with smaller DMOs, 1 FTE, with small budgets, 250,000, and limited campaigns and low mobile location hits?
Yeah. Love that. So I would say that there's two different segments here. There's the marketing impact calculator and the website impact calculator, and they both play a role depending on the size of the DMO and the work that you're doing. Traditionally, what we're seeing with smaller DMOs is that the dollars that they are investing in marketing and advertising are traditionally done through paid search and paid social. That's the most efficient way for them to be able to message to the potential consumers. And so for a DMO that size, typically we're leaning into the website impact calculator. And that model is one that's in partnership with Destinations International. And I'll just flash this up on the screen for you. But the website impact calculator, the cost of this is similar to the event impact calculator. It's based on the size of the organizational's annual budget as reported to DI for your membership dues. And I realize there may be some people that are on this webinar who are not members of DI. You don't have to be a member of DI in order to buy this. It's just simply that's how the pricing model is done. So if your annual budget is in one of these ranges, right, these are the fees that you pay on an annual basis. So when we talk about a DMO of that size, the cost for the website impact calculator, the ability to track paid search, paid social, organic traffic, model that out to the web pages that you're driving those individuals to, understand the observed visits and the efficiency of that, the markets of origin that they're coming from, the influenced visitation that you're creating, and ultimately the economic impact in your community. At a DMO of less than $1 million, that's less than $1,000 a month for all of that access. So super affordable, really great program that allows you to get not only the marketing tactical insights that you need to operate more efficiently and more effectively in the dollars that you've been entrusted with, but also then gives you the advocacy message to be able to support your work, and hopefully over time, by showing such a strong rate of return in the work that you're doing, continue to see an increase in your budget so that you can do more and more great work on behalf of your community. Other questions from the group?
I don't see any more in the Q&A. I think you guys are so efficient. You covered it all.
Look at us.
It's awesome. Chuck, Zeek, Laura, thank you guys so much for hosting this webinar today. Thank you so much for offering products that our smaller DMOs can afford. That's really awesome. We're thrilled about that. If you want to revisit any of this webinar, watch it back, share it with any of your team. It will be posted to our website tomorrow. And also, we hope you will join us. Our next webinar is on June 26th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. That is with Mo Parikh from Bandwango. You can also go to our website and register for that webinar there. But thank you so much for joining us today. Again, thank you to the Tourism Economics team. We thank you so much for doing this today, and we hope you all have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.